Good morning. Have you ever heard about indoor skydiving? Well, did you ever want to try or see how it works? But you might have seen that it is pretty darn expensive. Well, this is why today, in this new project that I am starting, I am going to start building a small-scale wind tunnel. So let's get started, and here is part 1. Basically, how they produce so much thrust is that they have a huge fan blowing air into the tunnel, and thus we will do the same, but first we need to find a big motor, and I have found one in this old broken fan that I have collected from the trash. Basically, all of the electronics inside are working except from the switches. So we can now unplug this fan. Also, be warned because we will work around high power motors, which means high voltage electricity, and thus I do not recommend starting these projects or otherwise to have quite a lot of electrical knowledge beforehand. This project is not for beginners, so stand back and relax. Now that our fan is safe, I can grab my Phillips head screwdrivers, since we won't need the switch part because we are only going to use the third speed, which has really high power. Then we can cut away the wires in order to be able to remove the motor. And there we go, here we have the motor part of the fan. And I am now using the continuity function on my multimeter in order to find which wires were connected to the third speed on the switches. And so, moving on, this allows me to link the wires with the colors and to solder them together. I have also added a lot of electrical tape and of heat shrink in order to give good insulation. Next, we need a way to turn on and off the motor, thus I cut the live wire, which is brown when it is AC, and I can now solder a big switch which is used as a power switch. I have of course also added a whole lot of electrical tape, just for extra safety. And so now I have collected this medium-sized propeller that I think I had from an old model airplane which was powered by a rubber band. But unfortunately there is no way for me to attach properly the blade onto the motor, and thus I am going to use my 3D pen in order to create a custom mount. And I can now add some hot glue, and here is a really strong joint. It looks ugly, but it does the job just fine. And then this allows us to plug it in and to test the motor. But unfortunately, fan motors are known to have a whole lot of torque, but not that much speed because otherwise they would be way too noisy. And while this can lift a piece of paper up in the air, it is not strong enough in order to start doing some science experiments with other objects. And thus, we are not going to use the motor of a fan for our project. And as you can see, the joint was really strong and I had trouble removing it. And so now I am looking for a high-speed motor which doesn't have that much torque, just as the one inside a Dremel tool. And I thought that I had a handheld mixer inside the junk part of my room, and so I have spent quite a while searching it. Even though I did not find it, I still stumbled across what appears to me a really high-speed motor. I think that it came from an old coffee maker, and I have used an electrician domino in order to hook it up to the AC power, and then I have tested it. But unfortunately, it was a really bad idea, and a whole lot of sparks were created, because I think that I overpowered the motor. And when I plugged the motor to the main power, I did after smell some burnt coil, and so this really was not a good idea. I have found this small AC 30 volt supply, and then the motor produced much better results, but it still was pretty slow. And that actually was in fact because the rated voltage on the motor is of 100 volts, which is not 30 volts, but not 230 volts. That was way too much and not that safe. In the meantime, even though we have not done so much, that will be it for today. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in part 2.